proudly welcome you to the 50th episode of Bad Movie Beatdown. We've come a long way together. Hell, I didn't even think I'd make it past the 3rd episode. Hey. Today's episode will be about the Riddle. I know, 50th episode, and I should have picked something a little bit more well known, but I think this is going to be special. You know why? Because it didn't just go straight to DVD, oh no, it went straight to newspaper. There are thousands of films made every year. Some will become blockbusters, others limited releases, many go straight to DVD, a few premiere on television or pay-per-view, but there are hundreds that will lie on a shelf and may never see the light of day. Yes, as unbelievable as it may sound, there are films that will never see a release because they're so damn bad. Think about that for a second. The Riddle was no doubt one of these films that sat on a shelf for God knows how long. That was until newspaper The Daily Mail, eager to boost sales, accepted the offer to release the film exclusively through their newspaper for one day only. For free. The Daily Mail received a huge rise in sales, and despite its low-grade release, helped the film earn proper DVD releases in the UK and US. In fact, the result was so successful, I'm surprised that more films haven't snuck out this way. So what is a film that premieres in a newspaper like? Brace yourselves. So the film starts with Mike Sullivan, a sports reporter played by Vinnie Jones, at a dog track. Yeah, I'm having a hard time believing Vinnie Jones is any sort of journalist. Intercut with this is Derek Jacobi playing a tramp who finds a mobile phone by the Thames.
Up 3/4? Up your bum.
The tramp also finds the body of a junkie. After the race, Mike goes to the pub, owned by friendly pub landlord Sadie. The pub is covered in riddles which Mike is trying to solve. Symbolism! Dwayne, a builder, helps Mike solve the riddle and she goes to make the pair a sandwich. Okay, what is with that pub's basement? It looks like it was built on top of the London dungeons. In this very safe environment, the roof collapses on Sadie. A chest falls out amongst the rubble as we flash to see what's inside.
Dear reader, if you find this manuscript while I yet live, return it to me in person. If, as I hope, I am long dead, bring it to any publisher, and your reward may be greater still. Yours faithfully, Charles Dickens.
5 minutes into the movie and already there's severe credibility problems. You've already guessed that it's some sort of dark Charles Dickens secret, but why the hell would he ever write about it? Why is it buried there? And is it supposed to be obvious that Dickens and the Tramp are both played by Jacobi? Because it bloody well is. But Mike wants to become a crime reporter and gets an interview with D.I. Willis, who doesn't seem to like Mike very much.
Flemyng building site murder.
Who said it was murder?
A worker falls 50 feet off a building site. One day after getting death threats.
It's a bloody building site.
So, was it an accident?
I did not say that.
Well, was it or wasn't it?
Get in my way one more time, and I'll make you eat your fancy newspaper, sports pages and all.
How dare you actually ask questions? Outrageous!
You are the rudest reporter I've ever met. You know how long it took me to get that interview?
Yeah, I do know. And that's why I'd like to buy you dinner.
8:30 at Elvira's.
You're so rude! And that is a turn-on. By the way, that is Press Officer Kate, played by Julie Cox, who we were very clumsily introduced to during that scene. In fact, my sentence actually took longer to establish this than the film did. Later, Mike's boss, Roberta, wants Mike to stop investigating the building site murders because it would affect the paper's advertising. Roberta is played by Vanessa Redgrave, who must be really hard up to star in this nonsense. Then again, she only appears in 2 scenes, so who can begrudge an easy payday? Roberta refuses, so Mike quits. Back at the pub, Sadie reads through the Dickens manuscript called The Riddle. A manuscript called The Riddle found in a pub for the riddles. How ironic. Oh, and Dickens himself narrates the story to camera, even though I think this is meant to be a character named Cedric Screnshaw narrating. I've heard of author surrogates, but this is ridiculous. And so begins the Dickens storyline. Cedric's wife, Maud, becomes increasingly mentally ill, believing that her husband is cheating on her. So the narrator brings in Maud's younger sister, Alice, who is 18, to help. Yeah, she's 18, and I'm prepubescent.
Wouldn't believe that thing was Junior Minister of Transport, would you?
What's right? He looks a lot older on telly then.
With that clunky expository dialogue, I wonder if he'll become important later.
Tell me about town.
This job, Gaffer says we have to finish early. So, same amount of work, but for 2 months less dosh. So we do an ollie.
Come again?
Ollie twist. We ask for more.
Yep, keep crowbarring in those references to Dickens to make those storylines feel connected even though they aren't. Sadie has something she wants to tell Mike but decides to tell him in the morning. Mike realises that he forgot his date with Kate, who is more than a little mad at him. And then we get the next part of Dickens' story. This doesn't make sense. Mike can't be dreaming about it because he doesn't know about the manuscript yet, and Sadie can't be reading it because, well, she's dead. However, before her death, she did leave Mike a message about the manuscript, along with another riddle.
She called me last night. She said something about Charles Dickens' manuscript.
You should tell Willis, it might be important.
Tell that prick my best leads.
Yeah, how dare I aid the police investigating my friend's death? They deserve it because the detective is a dick. So Mike sets about putting the pieces together. Kate comes around to help with Mike's investigation and make him dinner. Mike goes to see a coroner, played by the detective from Parting Shots, in the last role before his death. That's kinda creepy. But then we're suddenly thrust back into the Dickens story. Come on, this is getting annoying now because it keeps intruding on the story and no one is reading the bloody manuscript right now. When we cut back, Mike is observing Sadie's body when he is told about the junkie who was also found in the river. But Mike was already linking the junkie with Sadie's death before this scene because he wrote her down on the whiteboard. Whoever's figuring out this riddle in the editing room isn't doing a bloody good job. Mike and several other characters attend Sadie's funeral.
Sadie's daughter Veronica has asked us to play her favourite song.
Controversial incident. Dalglish, ball into 2 for one. It's there. Oh, beautiful running net by Dalglish. Dalglish at his best.
Yeah, that isn't really much of a song. I can't see that going to number 1 somehow. Clearly this was a temp track for a copyrighted song they couldn't afford. At the Thames, near Sadie's pub, the Tramp and Mike meet.
Change! You can't change!
Cheeky bugger.
The Tramp tells Mike about how Sadie gave him a sandwich earlier in the movie.
How do I reach you if I need to talk?
Oh, I'm here and there. Perhaps here is best.
Find my book.
What the hell was that? That doesn't even make sense in the context of the scene. With the Tramp's help, Mike deciphers the answer to Sadie's riddle, which happened to be where she hid away the manuscript in her pub.
Here. Kate!
How the hell did he fall on top of her when he clearly fell away from her? Thanks to their clumsiness, they find the manuscript under the table. With a clumsy segue, Mike talks to the building company owner, Don, played by Jason Flemyng, and then we move back into the next scene where Mike gets the manuscript looked at in even clumsier fashion. Keep the flow of the story consistent. You can't just ram scenes wherever you like. It's confirmed that the manuscript is in fact a genuine unpublished piece of Dickens. Soon after, D.I. Willis knocks at Mike's door, bringing him in for questioning, having tracked Sadie's phone history. Willis tells Mike that he will drop charges if Mike stops following the case. I love how it looks less like he's wincing from the sun and more from the boom mic right in shot. As you might have guessed, Mike isn't dropping the case and he lied to get out. Glad to see this sequence was entirely pointless. It's amazing what a zoom function can do, eh? Mike gets a call telling him to meet on the foreshore near Sadie's pub. For some inexplicable reason, Mike takes the priceless manuscript with him. Why the hell would you take it there? And if you presumed it was about the manuscript, was he just going to hand it over? Oh wait, no, it's an idiotic segue into another part of the Dickens story we don't care about. The younger sister, Alice, dies because the narrator's wife poisoned her out of jealousy, a secret they kept to their deaths. See? It's about murder and he's investigating murder. They're parallel. except for the fact that besides this, there is nothing linking these stories together. Two men on a boat arrive, and of course, being an idiot, Mike brought nothing to defend himself from getting his head promptly kicked in. I hope this doesn't damage the manuscript you put in your pocket, you numbskull. The tramp arrives on the scene armed with an anchor as Mike falls asleep from the chloroform. When he wakes up, he's inside the tramp's cave on the Thames shore. Yes, he has a cave on the Thames shore. Just roll with it.
What happened? Well, your friend with the chloroform didn't like the look of my anchor. And I didn't much care for the look of his knife, so I swapped you. But his chum, very civilised, really.
Vinnie Jones is a piece of cake, but Chester A. Bum swinging an anchor above his head? You don't want to mess with that. The tramp tells him that he saw the two men last week collecting water from the Thames before handing Mike a necklace he took from the junkie. How did he know he was investigating the case of the junkie? Oh right, because the plot says so. Back in Mike's flat, Kate sets the table for dinner. Wow, seamless editing! Maybe you should wait until she was out of shot before cutting the shots together. Unfortunately, Mike kills the mood by bringing the tramp back home. Because he helped him, I guess? Mike recognises the man in the locket as gangster baby Jimmy DaCosta, so they go out to investigate, and it turns out Jimmy's men attacked Mike at the shore because the junkie was his girlfriend.
Maybe baby Jimmy's got the that I'm snooping into his girlfriend's death.
And maybe it's time to hand it over to Willis.
You serious? We're finally in business.
Yeah, because the next time they catch up to you, they might kill you. Best to keep a homeless person on you at all times.
At first, I had the excuse of grief.
Whoa! Watch out for the framing there, Mr. Editor! We move to the next part of the Dickens story where the narrator is being questioned by a constable, who is played by the same actor who plays Willis. We get it, movie! You're trying to force a sense of duality in the story and characters, but it isn't working. Thanks to the coroner, Kate and Mike figure out that the way they killed the junkie was by drowning her in a bathtub full of water from the Thames.
Forgive me if I seem to be a bit slow, but when a purveyor of opium wishes to remove his concubine, why does he inject her and drown her?
Somebody ODs in his apartment. Willis would twig it, but a junkie turns up in the Thames. Who cares?
So move her to a different apartment. The only thing dropping her in the Thames does is make it look like a murder. But they need evidence, so Mike and the tramp make an odd buddy pairing and stop by baby Jimmy's place.
Just hold still. Make haste, my good sir.
It's so obvious that Vinnie Jones isn't standing on Derek Jacobi's shoulders right now. The gangsters, criminal geniuses that they are, leave the containers in the bath and leave the soap too. Because real gangsters always leave evidence at the scene of the crime. Not to mention the scene of the crime is the gangster's f***ing apartment! Unfortunately for Mike, Jimmy has come back, forcing him to hide in the shower. Yes, because it looks really obvious that there isn't a guy behind that curtain. Luckily, the tramp causes a diversion, giving Mike enough time to sneak out with the soap in hand.
What's in it? It's half eaten.
Oh dear, how unfortunate. Quite right. You deserve a fresh one. I'll go and get it at once.
A nice one.
Jimmy, what sort of pieces you fancy?
Are these gangsters meant to be idiots? What sort of pizza service delivers by homeless person? This evidence is enough to arrest baby Jimmy. Back to the Dickens story, and the constable ends up speaking to the narrator's wife, but luckily the narrator bribes him with notes that have the same serial number on them. Oops. As the narrator's guilt increases with each passing year, the corrupt constable comes back asking for more money. Mike, reading the manuscript, comes to a stunning realisation.
Jesus. It's like the riddle. It's so bloody obvious.
No more riddles.
Willis didn't catch baby Jimmy because he didn't want to. Willis isn't a bad cop. He's a bent one.
Well, no shit, Sherlock. I think it was pretty obvious when he tried to bribe you to leave the case. Mike dupes Willis into arriving at the foreshore, where the tramp leads him into his cave and Mike is waiting. Mike reveals that he knows everything, but Willis knows one thing that Mike does not. Who killed Sadie? Willis will only tell Mike who did it if he lets him go free. In two scenes needlessly intercouple each other, Mike obliges and Willis tells him that Forsyth killed Sadie, and later Kate leaves him because Willis went free. Dejected, Mike goes back to reading the manuscript. For goodness sake, dude, stop carrying it in your jacket pocket. It's well over 100 years old. These things need to be treated carefully. A mysterious woman named Margot, who has been watching Mike, starts offering him a drink.
I'm gonna get you
Try white wine, please, and whatever the gentleman's having.
No, I'm fine. You don't have to do that.
Oh, no, I insist. Well, I promise not to drown you if you accept.
That's an oddly specific reference. I'm sure that's not suspicious in any way. Margot is also played by the same actress who plays Alice. Why? I don't know. She blatantly spikes his drink right in front of him! Come on, Mike can't be this much of an idiot. Vinnie Jones doesn't look like the kind of guy that has women crawling at his feet. So Margot takes Mike back to his apartment and has her way with him. Oh, and check out the music in the background. It's getting me a bit in the mood. Of course, Margot is a professional, and as Mike falls asleep, she takes pictures of Mike and his notes. We now get a ludicrous scene where Mike speaks to Charles Dickens in a dream sequence.
Why you follow me?
I think you'll find you followed me.
Why did you kill Sadie?
Why the hell would Charles Dickens want to kill a pub landlord, you f***ing idiot?
You've been reading too many books.
I think this is a little optimistic, Mr. Dickens. This is Vinnie Jones we're talking about. Kate, ready to forgive Mike, comes back to discover he's covered in smooches and leaves permanently. Mike, once woken out of his haze, talks to an old friend of Vera's, who helped her buy the pub, which just so happened to be 3 weeks before they started building the Millennium Dome across the river. Mike believes that Forsyth told her about the building plans and killed her for it.
I suppose you've never heard of Tamron either. The construction firm you had 20,000 shares in. Is that why you killed Sadie?
I'm having a hard time believing that Vinnie Jones would get defeated by a 6-year-old so easily. Forsyth decides not to kill Mike and cryptically tells Mike that the pub killed her. Forsyth is later seen being hung by an assailant. We move back into the Dickens story. The narrator's wife has died, and so this would be the last time that the constable would need to be paid with his identical banknotes. Unfortunately, the constable threatens the narrator further. In the present, Mike goes back to the building company he was investigating, which Forsyth had shares in, and discovers they were making bids for Sadie's pub. As you might have guessed, Margot is a secretary working for the building firm. Oh, except her name is actually Tiffany. Mike gets her to call Kate and apologise. Because it's really just that easy. Having made up, Kate and Mike play a game of Scrabble, and the whole Margot-Tiffany business makes Mike suddenly realise that Cedric Schenshall is actually an anagram of Charles Dickens. My God, what a shocking twist! One that you blew completely by having Charles Dickens narrate the story in first person, morons! They go to the Dickens expert from earlier, who confirms that the events from the book are from Dickens' own life. Believe it or not, the Dickens storyline is actually somewhat based on fact, although it becomes increasingly fictionalised as it progresses. But whoops, got to go back to the other plot in this movie, as Mike walks into Don's office, where he basically confesses that he was buying the properties to build an Olympic village on top of it. You mean the recognisable character actor with one brief scene before this was the bad guy? What a surprise! It's not like I guessed this using the Murder, She Wrote principle. Although it's even easier to guess since several covers show him with a giant gun in his hand, including the backside of the newspaper giveaway. I feel like the cover should come with a spoiler alert. And because he's an obvious villain, Don blabs to Mike. Yep, he's wearing a wire. God bless cliches. Oh, and I don't think the best place to reveal this is right in front of the bloody building! And so all the remaining major characters return for a final standoff on the shores of the Thames. Roberta wants exclusive rights to the Dickens manuscript so it can be published, but only if she writes an apology about editorial conduct. Oh, the irony, given this was given away with the Mail on Sunday. However, Don returns along with Dwayne, who turns out to have been working for him all along. Mike makes Dwayne feel guilty because he was the one who killed Sadie. Then the tramp goes all bonkers and starts quoting Oliver Twist before Don shoots him. And from this point on, things really go batshit insane. Dwayne is simply outraged at the shooting of a homeless person and turns on Don, shooting him in the shoulder, and Dwayne is shot in the gut. Apparently, he only armed himself with 2 bullets. Dwayne, apparently gone insane, slowly backs Don into the Thames where they struggle. Dwayne drowns Don before turning his gun on himself. This conclusion is so abrupt, so underdeveloped that you're just left dumbstruck, wondering what the hell happened. And guess what? It gets dumber still. Having forced her to see the error of her ways, Mike takes back the manuscript from Roberta. The last shot of Vanessa Redgrave in the film is her face covered with mud, which I think is appropriate. But the tramp isn't dead, he's immortal. What follows are words that I will take with me to the grave.
I think this is yours, Mr. Dickens.
What in the holy name of Okay, let's get it out of the way first. This twist was obvious throughout the entire film because it was blatantly clear they were both the same actor. Not to mention it was foreshadowed with the subtlety of a bulldozer. But that's a mere hors d'oeuvre to the fact that this twist makes no sense! Why is Charles Dickens still alive despite the fact he's nearly 200 years old? Did he fake his own death? Is he an immortal? Do I need to cut his head off like a Highlander to kill him? And why are all the characters so matter of fact about an author who has been dead for over 100 years standing amongst them? Are we just meant to accept this ludicrous circumstance? It makes the last few minutes seem logical by comparison. So we finally get to the conclusion of the Dickens story, where he killed the corrupt constable and threw the body into the Thames River. What the hell does that mean? If you feel guilty for killing someone, you become immortal? Oh, and I'll ask the same question I asked at the start. Why did Charles Dickens write an autobiographical novel confessing to a murder he committed? And, as a cherry on top, Dickens walks into the Thames, taking the manuscript with him. The end. Words fail me. The riddle is a failure. The storylines, as much as they try, do not connect to each other in any way. The manuscript might have been a MacGuffin, but it was pointless to the main investigation about the shady building company. Vinnie Jones, who tries hard here, is fatally miscast as a journalist who gets beaten several times, something I have a hard time believing of Hardman Vinnie. The production quality is very cheap, with glaring mistakes that add to the feeling that it isn't complete, as if the music score didn't tell you that. To cap it all, the conclusion is one of the most audaciously moronic things I've ever seen. The original newspaper DVD featured a trailer for another film from writer-director Brendan Foley, also starring Vinnie Jones, apparently as Elmer Fudd, called Bog Bodies. For years, I wondered what happened to this movie, until last year, where it snuck out direct-to-DVD with two different titles, which is never a good sign. The movie looks even worse than the riddle, so be sure to give it a wide berth unless your name is Phalus. Well, that's all we have time for this series. I hope you've enjoyed watching them as much as I have had making them, and before we sign off, here's my favourite moments from this series. Hello and welcome to Bad Movie Beatdown.
I'm the cinema snob. Who the fuck are you?
Hey, okay. It's great talking for Vanessa anyway.
No, it can't be.
Another time!
Innuendo! everywhere.
If it wasn't for you fans, we wouldn't have reached 50. We'll be back next year with a brand new set of bad movies. Until then...
I'm Matthew Buck, beating down bad movies everywhere.